All right, this is going to be the last lecture for this first week. I'll also be putting up an Excel tutorial, but for right now, this is the last one. So as we wrap up chapter 1.3, we want to talk about how we're going to get our samples. So let's go through some sampling techniques. We'll start easy here. The first one, simple random sample, is clearly the simplest. All right, every possible sample of the same size has the same chance of being selected. Okay, so that just means that everybody has, like if we want to do a simple random sample of students at USC Upstate, every single student has the same chance of being selected. Okay, we can also use random numbers. Random numbers can be generated by a random number table, which I'll show you here in a minute. A software program like Excel, which I'll also be showing you in the tutorial later this week. Or we can also use a calculator. Here we assign a number to each member of the population, and members of the population that correspond to these numbers become members of the sample. So maybe we give every single student at USC Upstate a number, and we do a random number generation, and we happen to get the numbers 7, 41, and 104, and so the students corresponding to those three numbers would go into our sample. All right, so what's another example? There are 731 students currently enrolled in statistics at South Carolina. You wish to form a sample of 8 students to answer some survey questions. Select the students who will belong to the simple random sample. All right, so we're going to assign numbers 1 to 731 to the students taking stats at South Carolina. And then here we're going to use a table of random numbers. On the table, we're going to choose a starting place at random. For example, let's suppose we want to start in the third row, second column. All right, so my big blue arrow here says we're starting third row, second column. I'm going to grab my pen. All right, and we're going to read the digits in groups of 3, ignoring numbers greater than 731. Why would we ignore numbers greater than 731? Well, we only have 731 students. So if we get a number, say 940, 940 doesn't make sense to us because we only have numbers 1 through 731 in our USC statistics group. Okay, so let's start reading groups of 3. All right, we have 719. We have 662. All right, 738. All right, do we want 738? No, we're going to end up excluding that because it's bigger than 731. All right, we get 650. We get 4. We get 53. We get 589. 403. 129, 281, 185, and 445. All right, so the students assigned numbers 719, 662. All right, so 719, 662, 650, 4, 53, 589, 403, and 129, we'll just stop there, would be our random sample. All right, so we've got our, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have gotten our 8 random people taking stats out of our 731. All right, we could also have a stratified sample. All right, really pay attention to these next two, and you may even need to replay this part of the lecture, only because they vary. You just need to get it in your brain how the next two vary. All right, let's start with stratified sample. We're going to divide a population into groups called strata and select a random sample from each group. All right, one more time. We're going to divide our population into groups, select a random sample from each group. You guys, that word right there, each, from each group. All right, so what would be an example? To collect a stratified sample, the number of people who live in Spartanburg County households, we could divide the households into socioeconomic levels and then randomly select households from each level. So here we're going to take the Spartanburg County households, divide them into low income, middle income, and high income. And then from each of those groups, we're going to get a random sample. We're going to get a random sample of low income houses, a random sample of middle income, and a random sample of high income. All right, so now let's discuss cluster sample, and let's pay attention to how it differs from stratified. Divide the population into groups or clusters and select all of the members in one or more, but not all of the clusters. Okay, so what do? What makes this one different than stratified? Well, we're going to select all of the members in one or more of our clusters. Okay, so what would be an example? In the Spartanburg County example, we could divide the households into clusters according to zip codes. Then select all of the households in one or more, but not all of the zip codes. All right, so again, we could take Spartanburg County, divide them, we could cluster them by zip code, and then we could choose all of the houses, let's say in Boiling Springs and Roebuck, but ignoring the other zip codes. So make sure you understand how that varies from stratified. How would we do a stratified sample with zip codes? Well, we would again look at strata of all the zip codes, and we would do a random sample from each and every zip code. So do you see how that varies from cluster? All right, let's look at systematic sample. We're going to choose a starting value at random and then choose every kth member of the population. Well, what the heck do I mean by this? In the Spartanburg County example, we could assign a different number to each household. All right, so kind of like numbering all of our stats students 1 through 731, we're numbering all the houses in Spartanburg County. All right, we're going to choose a random starting number, let's say 42, and then we're going to select every 100th household. All right, so let's try to identify some sampling techniques given an example. All right, you are doing a study to determine the opinions of students at USC Upstate regarding stem cell research. Identify the sampling technique used. All right, you divide the student population with respect to majors and randomly select and question some students in each and every major. What could this be? All right, again, we've divided the student population with respect to majors. All right, so we're already thinking, okay, well, this is strata. All right, we're either stratified or clusters here. All right, but what are we going to do, guys, with these majors? We're randomly selecting and questioning some students in each major. Thus, it's a stratified sampling technique. Okay. What about if you assign each student a number and generate random numbers? You then question each student whose number is randomly selected. What do you think here? Yeah, this is just our simple random sample. All right, each sample of the same size has an equal chance of being selected, and each student has an equal chance of being selected. All right, so just a quick review here. What did I teach you guys in Chapter 1.3? We discussed how to design a statistical study, how to go about collecting data, different techniques we can use. We discussed how to design an experiment. And then lastly here, we discussed various sampling techniques. All right, that does it for week 1 with the exception of your Excel tutorial.